phenomenal, week up to this point in time. I thought, the couple days we got in last week were really good as well. These guys are locked in, excited, and realistically playing our best football at this moment in time. So we know that's what it's going to take. And I know that they're going to give that. So excited to get out there and get going.
Okay, we've got some hands up in there. We're going to start with the Oregonians, Aaron Fentress. Aaron, you can unmute and ask your question for Coach.
Hi, Coach. When you took over, 13 players, I believe, had transferred to Indiana alone, and somehow you guys have miraculously pulled this thing together to become, a playoff team. Can you sort of walk through the heavy lifting involved in that, and sort of the job your staff did to FCS Division two guys, Power Four guys, and developing guys in-house to get to the playoffs?
Yeah. So, a few years ago, 2 years ago, we came in and you're correct. We had a center and a guard and a punter that were starters from the previous year. So we had 60 some new guys on the team and we just had to find the right guys, right? We had to find the guys that fit what we were trying to build and what we were trying to do as a football program, and also staying true to the culture that existed here at James Madison. So that was an important part, was to understand we may not have the most money, which we didn't. I think at that time we might have had $400,000 of rev share or not rev share, of NIL money to share. So it was what we had to initially build. The issue was that a lot of the guys that we brought in had to be older guys, because the lack of actual playing experience was slim. So we knew we had to bring in older guys. So we found ourselves in a point where we were, trying to build this again the second year with 54 new guys. So that's the second year. Now, the good news is everybody that was remaining on our team, we knew who they were because we had a winter and a spring and a previous season with them. So that was a lot better than what we had to do the year before. And then our money got bumped up a little bit. We're just right around $1 million in our NIL for this past year. So I know that's very different than what you're dealing with out there in Oregon, but we were able to put together, I think, a really good roster, a really committed football team that really, is locked in and capable, and are excited to, get this, started out there on a Saturday.
Thanks.
Next, we'll go to Katie Harper from the Daily News Record.
Hey, Coach, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since you guys started implementing the noise in this through the stadium speakers. How do you think they've handled it so far, just going through practice?
Yeah, really well. I mean, it's deafening. Like, you can't hear from a foot away from each other. And I think it's pretty cool to watch coaches communicate, watch players communicate. Now it's pretty much second nature by the time we get to here on Wednesday. There's very little that's getting missed. They're doing a really good job of making sure that they're on the same page and have signals, but then backup signals as well. Once you expose one, you can't ride with that the whole time. So I think they've done a really good job of just communicating. It's kind of fun to watch coaches yell at someone with their hands like from a distance when you can't hear. But they're doing a really, really good job of acclimating to that.
All right, let's go over to, I think he's having trouble with the hand raise function. We'll go to Barry with the Washington Post. Barry, you can unmute your line and ask your questions for Coach.
Thanks, Chris. Sorry about the hand. Bob, I just wonder, for you, you've got a lot going on in two different coasts here. How has it been for you and just managing all of that?
It's been great. It's been great. I think that there's obviously, a time difference, which is helpful, is that you get to the end of the day here and you're 3 hours ahead of whatever might be out there. So there's not anything that has to get missed. I think if we were in the exact same time zone, that'd be really challenging. I'd have to steal from here, obviously, to give something, to there. But here I don't have to do that. I can get myself through the day and get to the end of it and use those final 3 hours to connect back and make sure that we're, on page. Now, obviously there's some text that happen through the day and just some lead up things that I got to look at, but really I can be focused as I need to be here. And then, have the second, the night shift come in and handle it, on the West Coast.
Thanks.
Go over to James Crepea from the Oregonian.
Bob, kind of following with that, and also we talked about it 10 days ago or so at Selection Day, and reading today's piece from Yahoo talking about you and Billy and the dynamic there. Wanted to confirm that Billy will not be traveling out here, first, and second, just how helpful has he been over these 10 days in terms of any game preparation, given his knowledge of Dan and especially Tosh's defense and just scheme and tendencies from working with him?
Yeah, so I don't know about him traveling. I don't know if there's a decision that's been made there yet. Someone else could answer that probably better than me. But yeah, I mean, he's been really busy with trying to assemble his staff. We've been really busy with trying to prepare for this. I know that, there's been some side conversations here and there. Nothing, nothing crazy. We haven't, taken a deep dive in. I think he's respective of, both parties involved here. Wants to see us do well, but also, wants to I'm sure preserve relationships out there. So there's been some conversations, nothing, in drastic detail though.
Thanks.
Let's go over to Jordan Mendoza from USA Today.
Hey, Coach. And leading up to this game, there's been like a lot of talk about, the group of five inclusion into the college football playoff. And, you being in it now, and then you also going into the Power Four coming up. What would you say is like why the group of five teams deserve a shot to be in this college football playoff when sometimes it feels like people are rooting against the inclusion of group of five teams in?
Yeah, I just think that when you have teams, again, that are capable and you have teams that have, worked as hard as they have and put themselves in a position and won the games they had to win and, kept it respectable in the games that they lost, that there's only so much a team could do. What else can they do? We can only play the football based on the schedule that we have. And obviously we came up short in one game. I think when you look across the board at, a lot of other teams, some that are in there lost to that similar team, and there's others that have lost to worse teams ultimately. And I think we're, finding ourselves with one blemish on our record. And I think that's something they have to consider. I think there's still good football played, at this level. I think you'll watch a lot of guys, leave here and go up a level, and play at that level. So I don't think it's, should be just looked over as far as the type of football that is played here. I also know that that's what the rules are, what they currently are. So, that puts you in a situation where, we're ranked and the other guys in that other league were not. So ultimately we're the ones in. I guess ultimately if they want to change that, they got to change those rules, but it just puts us in the position we are. But we're excited for the opportunity. I think that we can, you'll be surprised by the football that we can play.
All right, next we'll go over to Jarvis Heron from WHSV in Harrisonburg.
Hey, Coach, just wanted to check in, see where you guys are at on the injury front. How are you guys there? Is there a chance we see Manny Bush on Saturday?
Yep, Manny Bush will be good. And everybody else looks good right now.
All right, let's go back over to Aaron from the Oregonian.
Hey, Coach, one of the players you guys brought in the last couple of years was Joby Mallerie, who has connections to Oregon, played at Portland State, played at Barlow High School here. Can you tell us sort of what he has brought to the table? I guess he came in as a walk-on and earned a scholarship as well. So maybe what he did to earn that scholarship from you.
Yeah, it definitely. He came in as a walk-on and earned his way up there. He's just if you've seen him play, he's a physical, tough downhill running back. He's big. He just doesn't, his legs never stop. His pad level is great. He runs behind his pads. He's great forward lean and understands the offense, understands where to hit, certain plays and whether it be gap scheme or zone scheme, he does a phenomenal job. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's good in protection. And he's just positive. Like he's a kid that came in as a walk-on, didn't ask for much, just wanted a chance to prove himself. And we found ourselves later in the year having to go to him. And he just, I think every time he becomes the premier back, he's over 100 easily in almost every one of those games that he's had to start or play meaningful minutes. He's just a really, really good football player.
Thanks.
Let's go back over to Katie Harper.
Coach, obviously, as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks now, your guys have been the first to do a lot of different things, win the Sun Belt, first in Virginia to make the college football playoff. How comfortable have you seen them in that role of kind of trailblazing a path forward for this program and other programs around the state?
Well, I think they're very comfortable in that role. I think this is a team that believes in themselves and believes in each other. I think that's ultimately where it starts, is that they understand that the work that they've put into it up to this point in time, you've just watched bodies change significantly through the winter. You watch them continue to get closer as a team. You watch them get closer as an offense and a defense, and eventually, as a whole team ultimately. And then you watch, just the way they interact off the field, and there's just so many things that their growth, just I said it after that game in week 2, you could feel they have the fibers of a championship program exist within this building, and every little thing matters to them. The way they keep their lockers, the way they push their chairs in, every little thing to them, it's a championship caliber team that cares about all those little things. They are constantly pushing and challenging each other. And I think being in a part where you're, again, blazing a trail and you're one of the first to be ranked, you're one of the first to win the Sun Belt, you're one of the first to have this opportunity, are all things that just come with the territory and they fully expected for themselves. So I don't think any of this is a surprise to them. I think it's something they've expected. So when it shows up, I'm sure the outside world is saying why or how, and we're just saying, of course, right? Because we know that this is what we've, led and prepared ourselves to be in these moments.
Let's go back over to James Crepia.
Bob, one of your impressions of when you look at Oregon's offense, not just in terms of talent, but I'm talking more in preparation for scheme and personnel groupings, what they've done the last 6 games out of necessity and the volume of 21 and 12, 13, even a goal line short yardage with the linebacker and 2 D tackles out there is just not typical even for them. They've really had to push it. But when you know that if they have their horses back, they're really a base 11 team from what the first 6 games of the season was. What is the challenge of that been the last 10 days to prepare for a team that looks like 2 very different teams on tape, even the course of this season?
Yeah, and different personnel groupings, like you're saying, and different people in those personnel groupings as well. And I think that, the thing they do a really good job of is that they protect the run plays with their play action off of it. And then they have their, quick game. And then they're able in those 12 and 21 situations to find themselves in isolation moments where, if you're going to load up that box, they're able to take their shots outside. And those are the things that I think came from not being 11P, that they started to understand this box is getting pretty tight. These people are showing up and are downhill. Now let's just try to expose them on the outside. So that is certainly understood. I think there'll be moments where that's what they will do. I think they will line up and test it and see if we can stand toe to toe with them in those types of personnel sets, but they don't have to do that like they maybe had to do before. So there is a lot that goes into it as far as the preparation is concerned. Number 0 in the short yardage, 35 comes in as the extra tackle / tight end. All those pieces that end up showing up in there, it makes you prepare for a lot. And you're not going to get it all, but that's sort of what happens when you're in week 12 or 13 of the season with that many games. You have to prepare for every single thing that you've seen up to this point. So I think our guys have a good understanding of it. I think we've done a good job of boiling it down and getting to the foundational plays, and just understand a lot of that has to do with matchups and some window dressing that we got to make sure that we understand why they're doing it and then be able to react and prepare accordingly.
Let's go back over to Jordan Mendoza.
Coach, you kind of mentioned it a little while ago that in week 2 that you felt like this team had the makings of a championship team. Wanted to ask before the season started, did you have any inkling of what this team was capable of doing, making the college football playoff? Did you kind of talk about that within the team at all? And if so, at what point in the season was that starting to become more of a discussion with the team about we actually have a really good chance of playing for a national championship?
Yeah, so in our process, we kind of start at the beginning of the year, and not even the beginning of the year. We start after the season. What do we want, right? Like, what are our goals? And then on top of it, what are we willing to sacrifice to get those goals? And that's really what it comes down to, is once you state those goals out loud, now it becomes a matter of, all right, well, the work really begins. And I think every single player on this team said we should be the one from the group of 5 to be playing in this, 12-team playoff. That was the goal that we set out in the winter. Now you say those words, you got to back it, which I think they did an unbelievable job of. And then when these things start to actually materialize, and come to fruition, it put you in a spot of, all right, like now it's actually happening. So how much attention do you want to pay to it? Or do you want to pay attention to how you got your name in this conversation to begin with? And I thought we did a really nice job walking that tightrope of understanding it's there, talking about it, but moving on very quickly. And I think when we first were ranked 25 by not the college football playoff, but the coaches poll or whatever it might have been, there was a lot of noise around that. And I think it was a matter of that number showed up next to your name because of the things you did to get here. If you pay too close attention to that number, it will disappear. Let's focus and pay attention to what got that number there. And that was a big conversation we had. Then we get in the college football playoff conversation, and we're like the box all the way over here with 5 of them, right? And all of a sudden we're moving closer. And now all of a sudden there's 4 of them, and we're here. And now there's 2 of them, and now there's, really again ends with the 2 of us in there. And that's all happening. And our guys are seeing it all over social media. And it's, again, that's nice that your name's in there, but let's pay attention to why your name's in there, not that your name is actually in there, but how it got there. And let's make sure we focus on that. And then you go through all the other distraction of this, what's going to happen next year for me, the new coach coming in here next year, all those things show up. I've just have not been around a team before that stays as focused to the task at hand. Win the Sun Belt, get to the 12-team playoff. That's what we talked about from the very beginning of time. And regardless of all the other stuff going on, that's where we find ourselves here today.
Let's go back over to James.
Last thing I had, Bob, is just the overarching impressions you have of Dante Moore, and obviously the talk of him, of whatever his future may hold. Obviously, very highly regarded in NFL draft circles, and what makes him that way from what you see.
Well, I mean, he just processes things so quickly. He has a really good understanding. They clean the picture up for him a lot with some motions and give him the tells of if it's man or zone. He can read space, and then the release he has, how quick it is from his, pre-snap thought process to actually seeing it, recognizing it, and pulling the trigger on it. He throws the ball with conviction into some pretty tight windows because he understands the space he has and the weapons he has out there. And then when he's under pressure, I think that's probably what makes him really good, is that he doesn't take many sacks and he gets the ball out quickly and he understands the matchup he's looking for. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to throw it up. He understands, where the space is and back shoulders some things and puts it in locations where only his guy could catch it, even under duress. He runs. It's not like what he really wants to do, but he runs more to escape and look to throw. But then he will pull the ball and get himself out of bounds and protect his body. I think he does a really good job of preserving himself, and at the same point in time, just processing quickly. We got to be really locked in on what we're showing him pre-snap. We got to be really locked in on having some disguises, and then there'll be a tempo element to it too, where it'll just be being able to basically trust his receivers, hurry up and try to find you in a mistake. And then, like we talked about a minute ago, load that box up, show and threaten with run, and then get the isolations on the outside. That's the stuff that he fully understands the why and the intent of every play. He's not guessing out there and just kind of reading coverages. He knows why they're calling it. He knows why the motion exists. He knows what he's looking for when those things, present themselves prior to the snap. And in post snap, it's just confirmation with a quick trigger and then being able to throw it with conviction and trust his receivers. It's a lot of words, but I mean, he's really, really good. And probably nobody knows that better than you.